Oh guys, so it is the PSVR's 1 year anniversary, and so VR's been with us for a couple of years now. It's crazy to think that it's something that you always projected as like something that's going to happen in the future. I'm so used to that being where VR lived in the future. You know, whether it's in the 90s. So the first time I ever went on VR was those massive headsets back in the day with the big stands and the huge headsets and this just really simplistic polygon world. It was some type of one-on-one mech combat game that I played. All I remember really was being quite confused and disorientated. But yeah, that's when I was a 12-year-old, I think, when I first played VR. And obviously there was the Lawnmower Man film and all the other different places that it cropped up in the cultural zeitgeists. And yeah, just a technology that was always something that was going to happen in the future. And now it's here. And I've followed it all the way through kind of its development. Really, this first proper, genuine wave of VR was kick-started, of course, by Oculus Rift, by, what was his name, Palmer Luckey, who basically was an independent entrepreneur, inventor dude who crowdsourced his way to developing the Rift. If I'm sure most people are familiar with that. But yeah, and its meteoric rise as it found huge business investors and went from strength to strength. And VR's here now as a platform. Of course, you've got three major ones, the Vive, the Rift and PSVR. And it's here, and it's out, and it's doing its thing. It's crazy. Time marches on. In honour of the 1 year anniversary, I thought I'd do a top 10 physical release games that I've got. Yeah, the PSVR has been the first system where I've wholeheartedly had to. Is that a contradiction? I've had to wholeheartedly jump into buying digital games because, yeah, a really high percentage of the best PSVR games are not getting physical releases. You know, they're from smaller studios, the budgets are smaller, it's more of a risk to put out. They haven't have the resources to put these games out sometimes. So it's just the way it's gone as a result of the relatively smaller user install base of PSVR. So a lot of the best games are digital only, but there's some cracking ones. These are my favourite games that got a physical release that I've got. I haven't played Star Trek Bridge. That's potentially pretty sweet. So that's not in the list. This is just stuff that I've picked up so far. So number 10, in at number 10 is VR Karts. Bit of a wild card in this top 10. It's not very critically acclaimed. If I'm brutally honest, I probably love it at least partially for what it could be. It represents what could be a fantastic kart game. It's as close as you're going to get to being inside Mario Kart. It has some shortcomings. It's not as fast as it needs to be, really. The handling can be a bit strange at times, but it's accomplished. It does what it set out to do. You know, it's not the best kart racer, but it's in virtual reality, so that gives it an extra few dozen percentage points, which has been a bit of a theme. VR can lend previously mundane games something extra to make them worth playing. Yeah, if this game was on the TV, I would not be playing it. But when you're inside the game, that sense of presence and just the pure, simple facts, the simple differences that VR gives you to, you know, normal kind of gaming, being able to look around and feel like you're actually inside that world, that simple difference, raises it up. Yeah, and it's got weapons. It's got a interesting boost system, I want to say. Sometimes it can be frustrating, but it's alright. And it's multiplayer as well. I've not been able to get multiplayer games of this yet. There is a community calendar that's put out there to support people synchronising the games that they play on at any given time, any given day of the week, and that's a really good idea because with a relatively small install base, it's good to coordinate, so you're more likely to get a game. There's a lot of really good multiplayer games, and the calendar hopefully will be a way to help people find, you know, people to play with. So I haven't been able to have a game, a multiplayer game of this yet, which I'm gutted by because I'm sure that it'll be even more fun than it is, you know, by yourself. Obviously, goes without saying, I imagine, but to know that when you look around and you see those characters around you, to know that they're all other players, in that world with you being the crucial factor. I think that'll be sweet. Anyway, next one. Until Dawn, Rush of Blood. This is a really good one to show off to people who are new to VR. If your friends come around to have a go, this is a good one to get them playing because it's a sit-down game, so it's safe. That's one of the things you have to be kind of wary of when you introduce people to VR. They're not necessarily going to be, cognizant of the various dangers involved with VR. The trailing wires, the various fragile bits and pieces that you're going to have to be using. But anyway, so sitting down games are good for people who are new to VR. Anyway, this is an on-rails shooter, so it's you're on a ghost train kind of roller coaster, and you're just shooting with the move controllers. A lot of games that use the move controllers give you, or they all kind of give you hands in the game, things to look at, obviously to represent where you are moving the controllers. But in this game, it gives you arms as well, and it does it pretty well. So it really helps with the immersion. Simple little tricks like that have been used in various games to ground you in those worlds. So having the arms in there, kind of, out the corner of your eye, you kind of, as you're aiming around and shooting, out the corner of your eye, you can see your arms moving as well, and it really feels like you have that representation of yourself in this world, and it just grounds you there, and gives you that sense of immersion that is the main selling point of VR. And it's genuinely scary as well. I actually had to take the headset off the first time I entered into the kind of later, more scary levels. It's genuinely scary. So there's that. I've spoken about that before, how I think that fear is a uniquely easy emotion to access. It might have some evolutionary advantage because to be fearful will keep you safe from dangers. But I think VR can play upon that, your ability to be scared. It's really good. Works really well. The next one is Batman Arkham VR. This didn't get a release in Europe, so this is a US version. You can tell that because it says game on there. I don't think any European games actually say game there. They'll either say compatible or required, but the US releases say game. But it's a fairly short experience game, but it's accomplished in what it does. It's kind of a taste. It kind of makes you feel, oh, please God, let that be a dry run for a bigger kind of VR Batman game. That would be very welcome. But this puts you in various different situations where you can use some of the various bat skills. There's throwing batarangs. There's investigative work. It's fun. It's good. I like it a lot. It is a cool game. But yeah, it's one of the early releases. It's fairly short, and that's a common thing with PSVR games. Eagle Flight is the next one. This is number 6. It's a really simple game, and it's a good example of VR being able to provide you with a game that feels accomplished and involving, but being very simple. You don't need to have any. This is another good one to show off to people that are not even gamers at all, really, because all you're doing is moving your head around, and there's 2 buttons: there's slow down and speed up on the shoulder buttons, I think it is, or triggers, and that's it. And it's just that and moving your head around. So it's a really good game to give to people that don't normally play video games. And you are an eagle flying around Paris, and it's chilled and it's cool, and there's actual missions as well, and multiplayer aspect to it. So it's actually quite a lot of ways to play this fairly simple game, and it's pretty charming as well. So that's well deserved to be on the list. Yeah, number 6, Eagle Flight. Right, number 5 is Starblood Arena. I didn't get involved with this straight away. Jumped on a couple of months after it came out, but it's a really good game. It was the first game really on PSVR to really kind of make the best advantage of multiplayer. It's really accomplished multiplayer. Use spaceships in zero gravity arenas fighting each other. It's that simple, but it's psychedelic in the way it's presented, and the graphics are really bright and colourful, and the action's fast. It takes a little while to master, of course. That 6 degrees of freedom of movement, of course, takes some getting used to. But that's one of the biggest selling points, I think, of the game is getting used to and mastering that freedom, that 6 degrees of freedom within that environment, and actually being in there as well, of course, can be quite disorientating to begin with. Yeah, but it's a cracking game, so well recommended to have a review. Okay, next one is Job Simulator. This is another one that had to get imported, didn't get a physical release in Europe. And it's another good one to show off to newcomers to games and to VR. Because you just basically, again, very simple controls. You got the move controllers, but you're really just using the triggers to pick things up and investigate and interact with. So yeah, if you don't know about it, it's basically set in the future from a robot civilization's perspective. They're trying to explain what humans were doing when they went to work. What the fuck was this work thing all about? What were humans doing? So this is the robots trying to make simulations to show what they think work was like. So you've got like in an office, in a kitchen, in a shop, and you're just dicking about with a mechanics, a garage as well. So you're just dicking about with all the things in front of you, and it's really funny, it's really great, and just that freedom of being able to tinker and explore and just experiment and combine things, and yeah, it's charming, and again, very charming game. So Job Simulator. That was number 4. Oh, 5. That was number 5. Still recording? Yeah, okay, good. Right, next one is Valkyrie. This came out pretty early. Was it a launch game? I think it was a launch game. And yeah, it's a space shooter dogfighter. There's been quite a few dogfighter games on PSVR, and it's a genre that works on the system for a few reasons. One, because the cockpit style of gameplay works really well. Having a cockpit around you in VR not only kind of prevents a lot of people from getting motion sickness, but it also helps with the 3D element and the placement of you in the world, and just having that that difference between your close by environment and your far environment just really accentuates the 3D and the sense of presence. So cockpit games work really well in VR, and this is a launch game, and it's been added to a lot since as well. There was 3 free updates, and there's another, is it Warzone, is it? They keep adding to it, so get involved. This is another really great online multiplayer game, but there is campaign elements to it as well, and yeah, atmospheric. Yeah, it's well up there. Valkyrie is just getting better and better all the time. It's brilliant that they're adding to it. I'm really happy about that. That is number 4. Yes, number 4. Right, number 3 is a surprise to be this high up in the list, but that's where I put it. It's Dirt Rally. It's a surprise because I've not really been into rally games much over the years. The only one I really played was Sega Rally back in the day, which is fantastic, but ever since then I have shunned the genre. But this is another example of VR making games that you might not normally be interested in more palatable. That being in the car whilst you're driving around, the simple fact of being able to look into the corner as you're steering so you can see where you're going, and that simple thing, that sense of presence just made me interested in the genre again, basically. But yeah, and it's really accomplished. You can play the whole game in VR. Unfortunately, this version doesn't have the PSVR decal on the box, as they all do, and being anal in this particular aspect of my life, but not in many others. I think I might have to change it out eventually and get. I think there's a version that does have it on. But anyway, it's great. There's more racing games coming as well, and racing in general is really a genre I haven't really messed with much. Kart racing I played more of, but more realistic racing games I really haven't bothered with. But this has made me see that I will definitely enjoy them in the future. I think there's which one's coming out? There's a big one. This just shows how little I know about the genre. There's a really big racing game coming out soon. I can't remember the name of it, but it's playable in VR. So that's number 3. Number 2. Oh, brilliant. Farpoint. So Farpoint was the game that obviously came out with a big aim controller, which was shaped like a kind of two-handed weapon, and really adds to the immersion in the game to be able to hold something that physically feels exactly like what you're seeing in the game, and for it to react and move around as you expect it to, is another way of just bringing you into that world and grounding you there, making you feel like you're really there. But yeah, they really messed up on the kind of distribution for this. They didn't make enough of them guns. People were searching high and low, and I don't know what the fuck happened there. Did they underestimate? I mean, people were pre-ordering, and they would have had some kind of ideas to the popularity of this thing, but they didn't make enough guns. People were scrabbling to get them, and that's a shame, because it really needs to be experienced with the aim controller to get the best of it. Just holding up your gun in real life and looking down the sights in game is immersive as fuck. Now, I've heard it said since that that could be, maybe you could get around that with 2 move controllers. You still wouldn't have the thumbsticks, but maybe you could do that. I don't think they programmed that in though. You either play it with the, I'm pretty sure you either play it with the aim controller or the DualShock. Yes, I believe so. But maybe that could work in the future for those types of games, for military shooters, is to have 2 move controllers as a 2-handed weapon. That might work. You still would have the thumbsticks, as I was saying. And that's been a point of contention recently. People have been hankering after new move controllers with thumbsticks. But it hasn't happened. It hasn't come to the point that Sony they're going to bring out some new move controllers, but the upgrades are very, very minor. It's not really, they've changed the charge port, and the battery's apparently a bit stronger. I think that's it. So many people are saying they've missed a trick, but that's a discussion for another day. This game is fucking brilliant. My only regret about it is that there was no PvP. I can't believe they didn't put PvP in Farpoint. To me, it's got to mean that there was some kind of programming issue with that. Or maybe they're saving it for Farpoint 2. But if that's the case, if they're saving PvP for Farpoint 2, are they really just shooting themselves in the foot there? Because I think PvP in this would have been a system seller, would have been a headset seller, because the PvP FPS kind of genre is so huge. People buy, your Call of Duties and a lot of other FPS games purely for the multiplayer. A lot of people do that. And I think the draw would have been huge to have a PvP FPS game in VR. It's going to happen eventually. There will be some. There kind of already is. Is it Smashbox Arena, where you kind of shooting at each other, but a real kind of military style shooter. And this would have been great if you're playing against real people. I just don't know why they didn't do that. But there is a co-op mode. There's a cooperative multiplayer game that you can play, and that's fun. It's nice to be in those game worlds and shooting all the enemies and being in the action with somebody else. That's brilliant. Why no PvP? Anyway, Farpoint, fan-fucking-tastic game. Right, and number 1 is no surprise if you know anything at all about PSVR, and it is Resident Evil 7. Number 1 on the list of my physical release games, and yet Capcom said it only took them 2 months to make a VR mode for this game, because of course it came out as general release as well. You can play it on the TV, of course. Resident Evil 7 is a huge franchise. The team took 2 months to add the VR mode for this game. That's ridiculous. It gives me hope that in the future other AAA games will be able to have VR modes implemented fairly easy. It just requires the devs to have the will to do that, I think Resident Evil 7 was well placed to be a standout example of that. Again, like I said before, fear. Scary games work really well in VR. It plays upon your emotions very easily. And the atmosphere that this game creates is ridiculous. The extra budget, the higher fidelity graphics show that, even with the system's kind of limitations, the lower resolution mainly, it's still capable enough of creating an environment for you to really let yourself believe that you're there. And this game isn't even played with move controllers. You don't even have hand representations of your hand in the game. You're holding the DualShock, and yet it's convincing enough to make you feel like you're there. And that's a head fuck and a half. it's really scary to the point where, yeah, again, I'm having to lift my headset off sometimes to remind myself that where I am and that. I prefer to play it when my partner's in the room, so there's someone there kind of I can talk to whilst I'm playing. It's more scary. It is literally scary playing this on your own at night time in an empty house. But I haven't finished it yet. Probably for the point that I keep putting off playing it because it's that immersive. And again, yeah, even with the PSVR's shortcomings and the fact that you've got wires trailing around and it's obviously not real, and yet you still, if you meet it halfway, can have an immersive experience of the type that you always thought virtual reality was going to be about. And that's why this is number one. But you do have to meet it halfway. You have to be prepared for the fact that, you know, this is the first wave of the tech. Don't expect it to feel like the holodeck. You have to suspend your disbelief in certain ways. You have to accept the lower resolution, the rest of it. Forget all those things. Focus on the things that are working, the sense of presence, you know, all the rest of it. But yeah, that's my top 10 of physical releases. There's an easy, another top 10 of digital games. I might do that in another video if anyone's interested. Well, I'll just do it anyway. Yeah, I've been buying a lot on digital. It's crazy. There's been a few sales as well, so I've kind of waited for, you know, some of the more high price games, and I'm glad that I did. So some of the prices in those sales seem more fair for the amount of content you're getting on those games, but still a lot of really quality games unfortunately not released physically. But that's that. Anyway, so happy 1 year anniversary to PSVR, and I am positive about the future. Yeah, it had a lot of naysayers along the way, but I think once you've played it, it has a potential to sell itself to you. Yeah, it's great. It's awesome. I love my PSVR. So that's my top 10. Bosh. Alright guys, I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.